Hello, my sweet Denyce. I am so grateful to have you here as my first interview on this
Oh,
new podcast.
oh,
So, welcome to Empowered at Last.
thank you, Ron. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to share this moment with you and to, be introduced to this new incredible venture that you are beginning as you begin this new part of your life. I'm thrilled and honored to be here.
Thank you. Looks like we both got the memo about salmon today. So, will be a theme. I hope it means we're just locked in sync.
That's
So,
right.
for those of you who are not necessarily opera fans, you may or may not know what a privilege it is for us to have Denyce here today. She is literally a force in the world. This podcast is going to be an intimate conversation about life, anything and everything about life. And it's going to specifically focus on how to create lives of meaning, value, and purpose. And
Mm.
so, with that in mind, there was no doubt in my mind Denyce was the first interview I wanted to do
Oh,
because I have known Denyce for, we won't tell him how long, for a long time. And right from the beginning of our meeting, we began an intimate conversation about life. We are both seekers of life who have wanted to understand it on every level that we could. And so I am thrilled to share at least 30 minutes of our conversation with all of you. And I've already told Denyce that I will definitely be having her back to talk about many more things as we move forward.
I love it.
So even though Denyce is an international opera star who has sung in every major house in the world, sung with every major orchestra in the world. I mean, literally, if I just expressed all of her accolades, the interview would be done. So I don't want this podcast to be about, wow, aren't you impressive? Even though, oh my God, Denyce is so impressive. But what impresses me more than all of the profound opportunities that you've created for yourself is your heart and your essence and your core. And so when I do interviews on this podcast, I am basically wanting to start out with the humanity. So I would love for you to share with us a silly story that gives us access right into your heart or your family. Maybe you want to tell us about your siblings, some gorgeous little piece that people wouldn't know from seeing all the big stuff you do.
Oh, thank you so much. There's so much to say because this life experience has been so rich and so expanded, and every second of every day, I'm learning more and more and more, and I'm so grateful to just be here. So there's a lot that I would love to. Well, I was thinking about. I'm happy to talk about the sibling story. That's funny little story. But I was thinking this morning before we were talking about some story that may be of interest. When my little daughter was, oh, gee, I don't know. I was seeing Carmen was opening up a new theater in Denver, Colorado. They just built this new opera house, and my daughter at that time must have been, I don't know, 1.5 or something years old. She was very attached to what they call the transitional objects when she was really little because my schedule, I was traveling all over the place. Once I had to leave and I left her with my mother, and my mother said, give her something of yours. So I was wearing a nightgown, and I took the nightgown off and I put it in her crib. And that became what the French call her doudou, D-O-U-X, D-O-U, her sweet, sweet. And so that became her transitional, her blankie. So she was so attached to this nightgown, and and nearly every photo that we have of her, you see her dragging this nightgown. Well, when I was doing this engagement in Denver, I hired a nanny for the day to come look after Ella, and I was on my way to the theater when she came, and I said, listen, this nightgown is so very important. And she said, I know, I understand. I have 3 children. I said, please don't lose it. You know, that was the first thing. Okay. So they came back at that point, I was on my way out up to the theater, and I said, where's the doo-doo? And she said, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Well, I said, where did you go? And she was crying, and my little daughter had colic, and she would cry anyway a lot anyhow. But she cried and cried and cried and cried, asking for her doo-doo, her doo. So I was on my way to the theater, and the woman said, look, I'm just going to try and retrace our steps. I go everywhere. And she said, I don't know where we went. We were walking for hours. We were in the city of Denver. I don't know Denver. I was just there working. I don't know it at all. I went to the theater. Her husband called me in the dressing room. He said, listen, my wife is on suicide watch. She just cannot. She is looking everywhere to find this, this nightgown. I got out of the theater. It must have been about midnight. I came home. She was crying. She's crying, and Ella's crying, my daughter Ella. And so I started walking the streets and asking people, this is at midnight, and this is in my makeup, from Carmen, which makes me and I'm asking for a nightgown. I mean, I look like some sort of, crazy woman walking around the street with all this big, gigantic theater makeup on and asking people if they've seen a nightgown. And so I walked from about 12 midnight until about 3 a.m. And then a friend of mine from about 3 a.m. to 6 a.m, and we looked everywhere and we just couldn't find it. And I also stopped by the visitor center, and I told them I'm looking for this nightgown. And what a crazy thing to be looking for in the streets of Denver.
Yeah,
and
we just had 3 turned in this morning.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just such an odd, request, and the thing that held such importance. And the artist liaison at the opera also worked at Neiman Marcus, and he said, take a picture, send me a picture of it. I'm going to try and see if I can get into the store early and find something similar, because everybody understood how important this little nightgown was to her. We went around and around. At 7 o'clock, I started again looking, and I came back home, and I said a prayer, and I said, God, you're God. This is your daughter. You gave me this child. You know where this nightgown is. You just have to help us. You got to help us find it. I know that this is like looking for a needle at the bottom of the ocean, but this is your daughter, right? And you know how important this is to her. You've got to just find this. A couple of hours later, somebody from the visitor center called and said, Miss Graves, I think we have what you're looking for. So I go over there, and indeed, how they found it, they said that there was a homeless man who had it. It was pristine. It smelled beautiful. It was just perfect. And he was an angel. And I said to the woman, do you have a pair of scissors? And she said, yeah. And at that point, I cut it in a couple of pieces. One is in the bank, right? And the other, but just that tiny little, prayer of how odd to be looking in the city of Denver for a nightgown. I have no idea where they went. And the universe brought that back to us, and it was in perfect condition. And the second we gave it to her, she stopped crying. Is that fantastic?
What I love is that no matter what story we talk about, there are so many dang lessons in each event that takes place in our lives. So first of all, I acknowledge your compassion and your generosity and your perseverance about the things that are important to you and important to others in your life. We could just talk about that for the rest of the show. Now we talk about how all our lives are intertwined, and how even the simplest homeless person played such a vital role in the meaning and value of your daughter's life. Oh my God, I love this about talking about life, because we're about to transition and talk about some of your experiences in your career, but this is just as meaningful as performing at the Metropolitan Opera.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt.
Oh my God, I love that. And you see why I wanted you to be my first interview, is that you so clearly get it. And oh my God, my brain wants to go in 30 directions.
It's just so wonderful I grew up, my father was a minister. I grew up in the church. We were in the church, 7 days a week. And so even though it was important for me in my life to have that integrated into the fiber of who I am becoming, because it just had me think and look differently, look in different places and not look sort of at these things, but to really look inward. A few days ago, my mother-in-law passed, and my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law had been sort of taking care of her, and they said, Denyce, we're so tired. Can you take care, you and Robert take care of her, services? And I said, I'm happy to. And I was I'm in the process of putting together the memory slideshow to show at the repast. And I remembered that I had a videotape of my mother-in-law teaching my daughter how to make an apple pie. I knew I had this video, but I didn't know where it was. I went downstairs, I searched through 4,000 video, I couldn't find it. Again, I said a prayer. I said, God, you know where this is. I know that it's here. I just don't know where it is. I went upstairs, I did something else. I came back down. I hit the wrong button on the computer. And it pulled up this screen of a video flip shared. I used to have this video flip phone that I used to use. 632 videos there. I just click on any one. And of course, it's the one of my mother-in-law showing her how to make an apple pie. And I said, God, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And before we started this podcast today, you and I joined our minds and our hearts and asked God to be with us here in this moment. And every moment of my living, I would say, has been in prayer. There isn't a breath that I take where I don't say, thank you for everything, for all of the good, for all of the bad. Because I had a friend the other day who had something very seemingly sad happen in his experience. And I said, the first thing we have to do is say, thank you, God. I know you don't understand it. I don't understand it either. And we may never know, but I know that whatever this experience will cause you to expand, and it will cause you to shift and become a different being. And you are being reshaped, and you have to know, you have to trust that this is all working out for your better good and for the better good of all that are involved. And while it hurts right now and you don't see the sense in what's going on, you have to trust and know that you are being taken care of, and that it's all in greater hands, and that the being or the energy has its presence in your life, and we're not alone. And I think that's so, so important. I have seen examples of that all the time in my life. And I'm just so grateful to have been able to know that, to have been able to see that, to have been able to have these sort of confirmations, if you were, that the divine is present and with us all the time.
I call it our dance with life,
Mm-hmm.
the spirituality of life. I have so many friends in every religion or from every background we can imagine, and I know you do too, from having traveled the world so much. And what is important to me where that's concerned is creating this inner connection to our own sacredness, and then moving out however you choose. If you choose to do it through nature, and that God is reflected in nature, or the spirit of life, I think it is so great. And this will definitely be a big topic, and all the different ways to explore it. So for those of you out there listening to this, whatever your approach to life, finding the sacredness, even if your spirituality is the love and connection that you share with other people.
That's right.
So dang important. So if it's okay, I know that people are going to be so interested to hear about some of your life and career. So if you could pick out just one highlight from your career to talk about it and why it was a meaningful experience for you.
When I was doing my apprenticeship with Houston Grand Opera from 1988 to 1990, and that's usually after you graduate from college, it's sort of those young artist programs sort of bridge the gap as you embark upon a professional career. And I had an engagement there. I had a contract with Houston Grand Opera where you do secondary roles. Maybe you cover principal parts, but you get a chance to work with the artists who are out there, working with great conductors, working with great directors. And so I was fortunate enough to have that contract with Houston Grand Opera. While I was there, I received an invitation from Opera Theater of St. Louis to come and do an artist in residence for a few weeks, where they would send me out basically everywhere to community centers, to schools, to retirement homes, to sort of do what I call informances, where you sing a little bit, you chat a little bit, that sort of thing. Well, near the end of that contract, they wanted me to go to a prison. And I didn't want to go because I thought, I don't think anybody wants to hear any operatic arias in prison. And it's, you know what? It reminded me of when I was a 13-year-old girl and I decided I'd fallen in love with opera, and how in my neighborhood, everybody laughed at me. And even my brother and sister said, "What the heck is that? Why is it that you want to do that?" I think it reminded me of that. I immediately went back to that 13-year-old girl that said, they're going to laugh at me. If I go into a prison and start to sing, first of all, they're not going to care, because the people who come to the opera, the people who come to the concerts are invested. They want to come. They are usually great aficionados or great lovers of the theater, and they're there by choice. Under the program that I was there, these guys don't want to be there. I'm sure they don't want to hear any opera. And I just was really uncomfortable about that. And I said, well, why is that you're sending me there? I thought, well, why are you sending me there? And that's a whole other layer. So there was a tremendous amount of resistance in me to do this engagement, because I just thought, I'm scared. They're going to laugh. Nobody cares about this. What can I possibly do or say that's going to make an impact or any difference in their lives? Like, what an odd thing to bring opera into the prisons. Well, I did it. And we came in, we had to go through all the metal detectors, and we had to do a tutorial about what you could and couldn't do. And as I stand in the room with the pianist, I remember looking at the different men as they were bringing them in sections. And I remember thinking, gee, I wonder what he did. And gee, I wonder what he did. And wonder what happened there. And looking at some of these faces that were just so hard and stone, and I just thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I remember feeling afraid. And I said to myself, if I'm afraid to be with them, they're going to sense that. They're going to know that. And so they said to me that there was, I wasn't able to have contact with them, or to get too close to them, or to address them directly. And I remember saying to myself, God, I know there's a reason for this. I know I'm here for some reason. So you're just going to have to guide me through this whole thing. And I remember going over to this one man and saying, I'd like you to be my Don Jose, for example. If I were going to sing an aria, the Seguidilla from Carmen, I wanted him to sort of be a stand-in and pretend to be, even though in that scene she's in prison.
Yep.
She's in prison for, all these different, and I thought, I'm just going to speak normally, and I'm going to speak with them. And if I'm afraid to be with them, that's not going to lead to an open exchange. They're going to feel that right away. It was today, and I've sung, as you said, and I've sung all over the place in every important theater, opera house, with every important conductor. And I'm not saying that to impress you. I'm saying it because it impresses me, because I am this little girl from Galveston Street, Southwest Washington, D.C., from the other side of the tracks, who finds herself living this incredible life that I couldn't have ever imagined this. That experience, out of everything that I've been fortunate enough to experience, was probably the most meaningful one to me. Because first of all, I didn't want to do it. There was a tremendous amount of resistance, as I said. And I could see some of the faces as I talked about some of these hard faces coming in. As I was singing and talking about whatever it was that we were doing, I could see some of the faces begin to lighten. You know, you could see light come into some. You could see some of the people smiling. You could see some of them laughing. I had no idea that that would be my, you know, it was the greatest gift to me. It was the greatest gift to me in the world. And some of the men came up to me and said, you know, I'm not getting out of here, but I just wish you all the best with your, go ahead, you sing your opera, girl, you go ahead, you keep doing that. I'm just proud of you. And I think of them and I think of, gee, what's happened to that person, or what's happened to that person that I chatted with, and what's happened with their lives, and how they gave me so much in my life. And that day I thought, my mother used to say to us when we were little kids, if you do something that you know you're not supposed to do, because no one saw it, don't think you got away with it, right? She used to say that. She used to say, your grandmother in heaven sees you. And you are, you know, don't think that you got away with something. And I remember at that moment thinking, my grandmother in heaven saw that. She saw that moment, you know, that those exchanges. And that was something that has filled me and enriched my life. Many, I mean, you know, I don't know, 30 years. For all of this time, I travel, and that is with me, that's in me, and those words and their faces are in me. It's a part of me, and I'm so grateful to them for giving that to me. That's probably the most meaningful experience I would say that I've had in this profession.
So isn't it amazing, whether we are in grand experiences or simple ones in any particular moment in our life, how often our own fear or judgment will keep us from sharing ourselves with other people. We decide for everybody, and we end up robbing ourselves and other people from the gift of who we are.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, we can apply it to every story that you've already shared so far. And because there are so many other things I want to talk about, I won't go any deeper, but I am so glad, number one, that you gave that to yourself. You gave that to them. They gave back to you. Exactly. And now that story is still giving, including to all the people who are watching today.
Isn't that gorgeous?
If we show up and are willing to live our lives fully and authentically, it is magic. It is magic. I love that. So I want to transition to a sensitive, very meaningful subject for a second. We live in a world that is going through some major shakeup. And so many people don't know what to do with all of their feelings that are so pent up, and they don't feel seen and valued. Now, I have to introduce this so that it sets up, this is happening for all of us. Mm-hmm. In more severe cases, people are acting out on one another in ways that are so tragic. Mm-hmm. And we can take this all the way from just this week, where we've had the event in Las Vegas. And we can take it all the way back to the hugest event in the United States in the last half century, which was 9/11. People acting out of their accumulated pain, out of their accumulated frustration, because there's humanity in all of us.
Right.
And back to 9/11, when this happened, you ended up being asked by President Bush to sing at the National Cathedral, singing to the whole country, representing our voice of mourning, that we find ourselves in such a wounded world where we all need so much love and nurturing. We all need to learn how to value ourselves, which is what I believe will need to take place in order for these kinds of events to have to stop
Beautiful.
taking place.
Beautiful.
Valuing ourselves, and then we can start to value one another more fully.
Right, Ron.
So could you share with us a little bit about how it felt to represent that moment and to share from your heart all the feelings that so many people carried?
Well, fortunately for me, I didn't fully appreciate the gravity of that moment as I was doing it. I'm from Washington, D.C. I'm born and raised, and I have a relationship with Washington National Cathedral. Sometimes they would call and ask me to sing if there was a new dedication of a window or if there was an Easter service or something like that. So that part was not unusual. And you know yourself from being a performer, when you are engaged to do a job, it's about bringing the best that you can to that assignment, whatever it is. You just want to bring the best that you have to that moment. So that moment for me was not unlike any other moment, in that I was trying to bring the best to it. And I didn't really fully understand who all was going to be there. I just wanted to really do a good job. It wasn't until I was singing that I looked and I said, oh my goodness, there is President Clinton. And is that Ford? Oh my God, is that Jimmy Carter? They were all on the, and I just asked God I just wanted to be in my heart. I just wanted to be present. And, when you started to introduce that, I started thinking about the men in the prison. I was not up there on my own at all. I was up there with you. I was up there with my mother. I was with my grandmother, whom I've never met. I was up there with the men from the prison. I was up there with all of the experiences that have been poured into me that have shaped me. So it wasn't just Denyce up there alone, not at all. I'm filled with, so thank God, so much beauty and so many beautiful experiences from the people that I've had great, great fortune to meet throughout my life experience. Like you and like so many other people like you, that all of that was in me. So it wasn't just me singing, it was you singing, it was my mother singing, it was my grandmother singing, it was the men from the prison, it was all of that stuff that is in me that gets inside of the voice. That's what you hear. Leontine Price used to say to me, one of our greatest, greatest, greatest national treasures, who I just had the great privilege of being with about a week and a half ago. And when she came along as an African-American woman for the, singing at the Metropolitan Opera, opening up the Metropolitan Opera season with Antony and Cleopatra, in an art form that a lot of people consider to be a European art form, and they don't consider someone who has skin like ours to be in that sort of that position. She would say to me that, for me, this is her speaking, that really it was all about the music. And she would pour everything that was inside of her into the sound. And that is the thing that reaches out and touches people's heart. It's that indescribable, wow, I don't know what one would call it, but it's all that she has experienced, and all of the injustice and all of the unfairness and all of the love and all of the beauty and all of the overwhelm and all of the everything that gets inside of that sound. And that is the thing that transcends everything. Language, color, whatever. That's what makes it a universal language. It is the language, I think, of the divine, because it's of the human body. Everything that is in you is in your sound, literally. So thank you for that acknowledgement, but it wasn't just me up there. So I wasn't thinking of that moment I just wanted to do what most people want to do when they hear about something tragic happening. People want to be helpful. Everybody wants to know what they can do. I just lost my mother-in-law, so people call, can I do something? People want to extend themselves and sort of relieve any burden that allows you to invest yourself in other ways. And so I was not unlike everybody else that wanted to do something, and I wanted to be helpful, and I wanted to contribute something after everybody was so open and so shocked and so profoundly shaken and wounded after that event. I just wanted to do a good job. I just wanted to represent all of us, you know, really as a human being. So really that's what it was about for me. I was really thinking of, you know, just letting the emotions do the work, just
Yeah.
basically getting out of the way and allowing the music to minister, like letting the music do its work and let the personality be removed. I'm just a vessel. I'm just being used for the work of the divine. So that's how I saw it.
I love everything you shared. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to tweak a tiny little thing at the end. Instead of I'm being used, which I understand what you mean, spirit flowing through you and you are a vessel. I get all that. But it is also so important that we claim how important it is that I or you or anybody else listening, I am showing up and I am willing to share my heart and I am choosing this. We are such a proactive part of that, so that, if you don't mind the little tweak, it doesn't make it sound like I'm just little old me. And no, we are so important and we matter just as much as all the presidents you named that were on the front row. We all matter just as much, and we're coming together. And your willingness to send your heart out and all that has gone in to inform that heart. I literally teach my clients to use their voice and to resonate their hearts on purpose, just in speaking to somebody you care about, letting that resonate from here out to another person, rather than getting caught up, not that you were, but many people do. I don't really matter, and what I have to say doesn't really matter. I'm not in a huge moment like that. We all matter so dang much, and it has to start with beginning to understand that here and claim that, and then share that generously. So with all of that, I so wish we had time to talk for 2 more hours. But for now, bringing this subject of showing up to our lives, allowing the meaning of each thing, whether we're searching for something that matters and that we include other people and we're grateful, whether we go to a prison and allow ourselves, or go to a situation that is scary for us and allow ourselves to show up anyway, or whether we have the bigger moments of our lives. They're all big moments. They all matter, each moment. And I thank you, Denyce, so much for being a reminder of all of that for everybody listening. And so in closing today, is there one thing that you haven't said that you would like to pass on to the people as an inspiration of how they can show up day to day to make meaningful moments?
Well, I'm just realizing that at the beginning we talked about the siblings, and I didn't tell that story, but that doesn't really address what you're where you were asking right now.
I am trusting the way it's meant to flow.
Okay. All right. So when I was a student in college, my first year of college at Oberlin College, I went to summer stock at this place in Center Level, Maine called Quisisana. It's a resort, and it's a seasonal resort where people it's just the summertime. And usually they come and audition around conservatories, because what they do at this resort, they, each night of the week is dedicated to something. So they put on full-scale operas, they put on full-scale musical theater, they do concert nights, that they do chamber music, that sort of thing. So all of the workers that work at the resort are also the performers, right? So I chose to work in the dining hall. So that means that the people that you meet, usually they had a minimum of a 2-week stay. It's primarily a Jewish clientele. And usually there's a minimum stay of 2 weeks. So you see them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then you serve them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then they come in the evening and they see you sing. I was singing, Marcellina and Nozze di Figaro, or, whatever it was in whatever the different guys and dolls we were doing. So I'm this little girl, right, from Washington, D.C. I don't know anything about anything. I was, at the time, I think I was 18 when I was working there as a waitress. I'd never worked as a waitress before. And I didn't know a lot of Jewish people, and I'd never heard before of the Jewish foods. I didn't know what matzo balls were and gefilte fish. I'd never heard that stuff. So anyway, when I arrived, when the clients arrived, they're so anxious to get to know you. Oh, please tell us what shows you're going to be in. Tell us what schools you go to. How old are you? What's your voice type? That sort of thing. Then they started to order, and somebody said, I'd like to have pancakes with hard sauce. And somebody said, I'd like to have gefilte fish. And somebody else wanted brioche. And somebody asked, do you have any siblings? And I said, I don't know. I'm going to go ask if we have any siblings. I'm walking to the kitchen. I'm thinking, I've heard siblings before. Do we have any siblings? So I come back to the table and I said, I'm really sorry, but we don't have any siblings. They fell on the ground. Like, they have become my very, very, very dear friends. It's 30 years ago or something. They never let me forget that story. That's always what we lead with if I'm ever in their presence. Oh, we have to tell you how we met Denyce. Tell them about the siblings. But I thought it was some sort of, I knew I'd heard the word, but at that point they were ordering. And so in my mind, I was on to the ordering, and I thought it was something that I'd never heard of before. So.
Yes, even the little moments and the moments of faux pas are meaningful and can lead to connection. And oh my God, I love it. And even though I wish we could continue on, and I look forward to having you back, I thank you so much for being here.
Yeah,
having you as the first guest on this podcast means the world to me. I love you to pieces. And I thank all of you for being here as well. Please pass the word, share with your friends, so that we can reach more people with the conversation about life and what makes it truly matter. I'm going to be doing tons of talks, shares about specific strategies that you can use to get in touch with yourself and learn to trust that self so much more. So I thank you. Have a great day, and I will see you all again soon. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Before we close, I wanted to encourage a couple of things. Number one is to go to ronbaker.net. There you will find lots of clues for how you can deepen this conversation. You can also find a way to get the booklet, An Essential Guide to the 9 Nurturing Needs. This is going to be a core focus of how we're going to enhance the quality of your life from the inside out in all the episodes. So I encourage you to go there to get an overview of those 9 nurturing experiences that we all seek more than any other thing in our lives. I also want you to get involved in the conversation here. I really would like to talk about the things that are important to you, the things that you're concerned about or excited about. We live in a wacky world that is changing constantly. We need to learn to connect to ourselves, to count on ourselves, and to count on one another. So please either get involved at ronbaker.net or in the Facebook page, which is Empowered at Last with Ron Baker. I look forward to hearing from you. I look forward to deepening this conversation about life. And I close as always, choose well, live fully, and by all means, be good to you. Have a great week.